Okay, my friends, it's Roger once again, who happens to be all over the place in my research. I cannot see a single thing that does not stir my interest because it's not correct. I'm telling you, there's just nothing right that I could tell. Nobody's looked at about God and Satan and the fifth planet and the asteroid belt and all the ancient texts that were written. They've been laughed at. Electrons are different than we thought. Subatomic particles. Sound, actually, they can take pictures now using sound. I'm going to show you in this video a lot about where to find gold, and it's very easy to find. You find it all over Earth right now, tons and tons of it. It's very simple to find once you understand mud fossils. Because the gold didn't just accumulate somewhere, they call it veins of gold. What does that mean? Now, I went into like literally a rant about a million different things, and I'm not going to edit it because I've been trying to edit, and it's confusing me to no end. So I may go over things once or twice or 5 times in this same video. I don't know. But I'm not going to edit anything out. I'm done with that. I'm going to start talking, and then I'm going to stop talking, and then when it's going to be over, it's over. All right, so I know that's kind of an attitude, but I just can't do it anymore. No, people aren't really paying attention. There's only a certain number of people that are paying attention to the same people over and over and over. So as far as I'm concerned, you're my friends. You're my family right now. So I'm going to talk to you. You're going to listen if you want. You're not going to listen if you don't want. All right, so that's what it's going to be. Basically just a discussion with myself about whatever I want to talk about. See that? That's good. That is an artery, or a vein, one or the other. And as the blood is coming down this way, it's upside down, and it would be feeding off here into little branches. But it just backed up here, and once it backs up, the gold sort of it's specific gravity. It seems to accumulate and then form like a little lump. Now, in the legs of these giants, where they're stuck in the mud, way deep down under the mud is where the gold is, because it's way at the bottom of their feet. And they found some huge amounts, 1,600 feet deep in the ground, after a played-out mine in Australia. It's called Leeds Mine. They had to dig 1,600 feet down before they hit the big source of the gold, which was at the bottom of the foot. Veins and arteries differentiate where the gold accumulates. That is, I can almost guarantee you, is an evacuated artery. Arteries don't have any plugs in them. Veins have valves in them that only let the blood go one direction. Now, I can tell you right now, I can see blood in these, right here. And there's blood in all of these veins of gold. I mean, they're veins. They're veins or arteries. So there's blood in them, and then there's other minerals and so forth. If you look carefully, see this? That's not gold. That might be silver, or it might be lead, or whatever it is. But it's close to gold. They settle out, and it'll get golder and golder as it gets lower and lower, or higher. It looks like it's getting golder up here. Now, it's just what it is. And then there's body parts that you can actually see. They call them ram's horns. Hold on a second. Okay, here's another one. We're crossing an artery and a vein. It looks like it's a vein to me, but I don't know. There's the gold, and there's the blood. It doesn't get any clearer than that. I mean, how can you miss that? Here's another little one where it came down, and then it just sort of congealed. You see the difference in color from the gold? It's a settling process, just like they settle sedimentation out in ponds, and the heavier stuff goes to the bottom and less up at the top, right? And gold and all metals and minerals are like that. When they have to take them and get the gold out of it, they have to process it 90% of the time. It's not just completely raw gold when they take it out. There's all kinds of minerals and metals mixed in with it, and then they go to certain temperatures and so forth. It's alchemy at that point. They have to separate out what they want and draw off the slag and the things they don't want. Oh, it was loaded with gold. It's just turned into a gold finger. Goldfinger. Now you see that? That's the blood. That was the artery or the vein, and there was one on the other side. They have them on both sides. One of them plugs up, one of them doesn't. This one here blew out on mine. The other one is right there, just like that. Now, at the tip, you have what's called the apical tuft. It's this right here, and there's a whole bunch of little tendon and ligaments that come in, and they invest in these holes. And that's what makes your finger be able to do all these different things. That's what this is exactly like that, only mine is not gold. You see the little bumps at the bottom? Same thing, these same pads. Same thing as you have on the bottom of your fingers. I've looked at this extremely well. I know exactly what it is, and it is a fingertip. And I believe it came through space, and that's why it's cooked up like that. I can even see fingerprints inside. That you can't see it, but in a microscope you can actually see. You might be able to see it. See the little bitty lines there? I doubt if you can see that. But anyway, this still has skin. And it's a very strange new world that we live in, and it's time to investigate it and think about it, rationally. I know it sounds irrational to think along these lines, but it's not. If it's real, it's rational. Right? It's not silly. It's not just making up things to have a good time. These are rocks that are literally bones that were inside of a creature. And they are so perfectly preserved that nobody can believe it. But it's just so obvious for anybody that, it's mind blockade to not be able to look at that and to be able to see it for what it is, and then to think about what it means and what we are looking at in front of us every day on the ground that we have missed. That's my issue. Because all I see is people want to walk around in circles. That's it. I'm serious. They want not to understand. Very, very, and the ones that want the worst not to understand are the ones that claim to be the most educated. That's my issue. All right, that's blood. That's an artery. That's a fingertip. That's gold. Any body part can turn to gold. Any body part. It depends if it's the lowest body part that is in the creature when the blood drains out of it, and it depends on what it's draining into and how backed up and what the depth of it is, because it all amounts to specific gravity, and everybody's body contains a certain amount of gold. You have gold in you right at this very minute, and if they drained all your gold out and let it settle out the right way, they would get a little lump of gold. No, that's just a fact. That's what blood is it contains gold. And either your body makes the gold or you're extracting it from what is in the ground. I don't know which way it is. But I do know that bacteria can poop out gold from heavy metals. And that I've been talking about as well, because I'm getting into alchemy. I mean, it's all this stuff very, very, very interesting. And all this stuff was known a long time ago. We laughed at it. Oh, alchemy. Ah, that's so silly. Oh, this talk about gods and all that nonsense. Oh, these Egyptians, they were fools. Oh, different world now. All right, so many things are tying together today. It's just amazing. Now, somebody sent me this original synopsis of the Lost Book of Enki. It's 2 hours, so I'm listening to it, and it is extremely good. It is by Ancient Astronaut Archive. They always do good work, so Ancient Astronaut Archive is the source of this. But I just wanted to play for a minute or two. You should come up and listen to the whole thing. I am going to. I haven't gotten that far into it yet, but this turned me on to South Africa and how big the creature is there, because that's where they found, well, I'm going to let it play here just for a minute or two, and because this points to the Abzu, which is the South Africa, and then the giant stone circles and Michael Tellinger and so forth. We'll get into that in a minute, but listen to this. This is tablet 4 talking about how they came to Earth to get the gold.
Tablet 4 opens with Abgal's successful navigation of the journey home to Nibiru. After Anu welcomed Abgal home, the savants quickly removed the gold for processing into the finest dust. The Nibiruans spent an entire shar processing and testing the gold particulate before eventually dispersing it in the atmospheric breach. The endeavor seemed successful until Nibiru reached its apogee near the sun and the breach returned.
Right, that's because of it would be really crushing and it would force it open. Because you're into a ton of particles. The closer you are to the sun, the more condensed these particles are. The further away, the further they are. It's just the way it works. So as it comes close to the sun, it's getting scrubbed. That's why comets start to glow and they're actually cooking. And I'm not kidding you. Comet 67P is literally cooking when it came through. And I don't even know if it's still spewing out gases, but whenever it spews out those gases, those are hydrocarbons, and that is cooking body tissues.
Anu then ordered the return of Abgal to Earth along.
Whoops. Now, again, it didn't work. They put the particulates up in the atmosphere to keep the atmosphere from being breached. It opened back up again. So now they got to go do something else. Here goes.
Along with Nungal and more heroes. However, even with the additional heroes and equipment, gold acquisition was underwhelming, and Ea decided to resume aerial reconnaissance. He finally discovered the Abzu, southern Africa.
Boom. Southern Africa. Tons of gold. What does tons of gold mean? Tons of blood. A gigantic, huge creature where all the blood ran down, and then it hit a level where there was just nothing but gold at that specific gravity level, and that blood ran out. And once it started to back up and gold starts to form, it seems to just back right up and make a lot of gold at that particular point. And if you know what, I will show you before long, Leeds Mine in Australia. It was played out because the gold is up at the top of the foot, and it's got a little leg going on up there, and that's where your gold is. And once they get all that off from there, there's still way down at the bottom is where the gold is, the concentration of gold. And that's what they did. They 1,600 feet down, boom, tons of gold. I mean, I don't know if tons, but it might be. All right, I said the other day it's easy to find gold, and it is. If you go to the places where they were finding gold veins, when I say gold veins, I've showed them, I think, and they are literally veins of gold running through, and there's actually blood within it. If you go deep enough to where those veins go to, you're going to get to places where it's going to be hugely collected. Now, normally you have the leg coming down and it pinches at your ankle, and then you have flesh at the bottom. Well, you have flesh at the top, there'll be a little bit of gold, and then it's going to stop. And then you have tendinous material. It's just solid rock, no gold to speak of. And then you're going to get way down at the bottom of the foot, and that's where the gold is going to be. And that's where they found this, 1,600 feet deep from a played out mine. Now, I don't know if they were listening to me, but I've been talking about this for years. If you dig deep enough in one of those locations, you're going to hit a lot of gold. All right, now this is in miners in Western Australia say they've discovered 2 huge gold-encrusted rocks, each estimated to be worth millions of dollars. Largest, weighing 95 kilograms, was found to contain more than 2,400 ounces of gold. That's one rock. The company said it had extracted gold worth about whatever that is, a lot of money. One mining engineer described the find as exceedingly rare. It says people do still record finding nuggets in gold fields. Well, here's what happens. If you find gold up above at surface level in chunks, not in the little flaky, dusty stuff, but in chunky chunks, you know if you go deep, you're going to hit the bottom. And here's what happened. A mining company valued the largest rock at 4 million Canadian, I guess that is. It said the second largest 63 kilogram specimen, estimated 1,600 ounces of gold, was worth 2.6 million. Giant gold nugget. Okay, now miners in Australia found all this tons of gold, just layered with gold inside these veins. Well, let's talk about that. This was the Beta Hunt mine, primarily been running as a nickel operation till last week's discovery. The company had targeted the gold vein 500 meters down, 1,600 feet underground, after finding traces of gold closer to the surface in June. That's in the veins and the arteries that are coming up. You follow them down, and you're going to find the big chunks. And then they said the largest rocks would go to the auction as collector items. Gigantic, gigantic chunks of gold. Collector's items. They never find them like this before. But I understand how gold forms. It's very simple, actually. It's just nothing but filtering out sedimentation, really. Okay, my wonderful, extremely intellectual searchers of truth friends. What are we looking at here? Gold. Gold. And they had found tons, and literally thousands of ounces of gold, 2,400 ounces, I think, in one of these rocks. 2,400 ounces of gold. That's a lot of gold. Now, and they had to go 1,600 feet down, and I understand how gold settles and where it is going to be found and all that stuff now from the mud fossils, because it's all biology. This didn't just happen by accident. That's what they don't understand. This is no accident. It's not an accidental thing at all. And there's going to be certain areas and certain depths that are going to be where you're going to find this gold. Now, so the reason I'm talking about gold right now is because I was looking into the early text about the Anunnaki, because now I know about all of these things on the earth that were just, nobody can explain them. And even in the Anunnaki texts, well, they seem like they knew almost everything, but not everything. They didn't understand where the gold was. And I will explain to you, and you will see that. And what you should watch is this video. Hold on one second. All right, there's a whole video that Tyson did up. It's called Mudfossil Tendon Balls, Possible Aqueous Bilipid Layering. Now, this is the lower part of the bilipid. That means two layers. One is 6 feet above here, and in between is all eroded out. These are the protein channels. So what I'm getting at is Michael Tellinger's stone circles. There's no reason whatsoever they couldn't be fascia, interstitium, all kinds of things like that. All right, you probably don't have much of a frame of reference here, but these thickness of these outer layer, which is the membrane surface, they're 8 to 10 inches. It's absolutely unbelievable. 8 to 10 inches, they're huge. And that is the membrane surface. And then above that, 6 feet above, there's another layer way up above. You should go up and watch the video. Mudfossil Tendon Balls, Possible Aqueous Bilipid Layer. It's by Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures. Fabulous work he is doing. He's putting the videos up, a ton of them, and they're all exceptional. And he understands what he's doing extremely well. And the site he has is very, very difficult to do any better than what he's got. The ocean has eroded away and exposed things that you would never see in their most exquisite details. And and of course it's dismissed by geologists. They tell him, "Oh, stay away from that. Yeah, you're being an idiot." You know, they really just try to tell you, just don't do this stuff. And no interest whatsoever, it seems. Very, very hard to accept. I mean, it really is. It's, you know, it makes you want to really challenge them to say, "What the hell is the matter with you? Don't you see what you're looking at?" And then it goes all downhill from there, because that's exactly what I do. And it's been a tough road. I'm telling you, man, it's a tough audience. Okay, we're going to get into a bunch of things, but this gets into South Africa, because that's where they found the gold. And I think it'll say that here in a second. But this is from Ancient Astronaut Archives. And not only that, I want to get into the stone circles that Michael Tellinger does down there. He's been doing a fabulous job for years. You know, he's got a different idea of the Earth than I do, and his followers don't like me looking into space and doing stuff like that. So I sort of we don't engage a lot. But he's a nice guy. He's doing a great job, and he's looking at giants and all this, and he's looking at those stone circles now. And I think the stone circles may be originally biological. I'm not saying they're not altered and they haven't been changed a bit, but I think I've looked at quite a bit of it, and now understanding that the Abzu was where they were getting the gold from, which means that was the biggest concentration of blood, which means the biggest creature, which means the biggest layout of biology. Now, Tyson's got one that's probably damn near the same size. Well, let me just show you his membrane, and then we'll go from here, because then you can get an appreciation for what they're talking about in the Abzu here, and what Michael Tellinger's looking at in his stone circles. I'm just throwing that out. I don't know if I'm right or not, but I'm just giving him another alternative to look at. And he's doing a fabulous job there, and he's been doing it for a long time. I can remember years and years ago seeing him standing in front of a footprint that was like, I think it was like 4 feet long or something. I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's amazing. I have a fingertip now that's 3 feet long. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable what I mean. That's tiny, as you know, because this is like a creature's footprint or something. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And all this water flowing in there, a lot of that is from blood veins and arteries that were attached coming up to muscles above. I'm not kidding you. It's just unbelievable. Now, this is in Africa. This is in Nigeria. And this is like some kind of a parking lot or something over here. All right, this is taken from a shot 1,175 feet. Oh no, I'm sorry. All right, look at this. This is in Nigeria. To me, that's a footprint, and and there are other ones around there. They're smaller. They look like the kids' ones, but that looks like he stepped in a pile of poop or something. But anyway, they were giants. And if they died in the flood and were stuck and drowned and stopped eating and so forth, they would go deeper into the mud, because as the ground became more and more fluidy, aqueous, they just would sink in there. Now, originally they would be trying to push one leg up from the other. They would, you'd be pushing one up and it from the other. So usually there's one deep leg and there's one up above the ground, and it's not that far up above the ground. And they break off at this transition point where it turns from tendon into muscle. It's called an abrupt transition, and that's why they're flat like a plateau. But underneath is the leg. The foot, and up above would have been the leg. See, that's where the other ones are around it. They look like kids or something. I don't know, maybe he came in and grabbed them and said, get out of there, it's mud. Alright, I'm going to do the best I can to try to simulate what you're going to see in a second here. But this is a no-toe. And whoops, it's a giant foot. And that's where the main bone comes down, it's the tibia. And then you have a fibia that just lays on the side of a leg, and it doesn't really hardly attach at all. It just falls right off. And they're all the same. It's not just this one. Now, this is the main bone right here. This is where the main bone sits. It saddles right like that. Now, in these big, gigantic creatures, I believe that was the remnants of a foot. Oh, come on, Roger. Well, let's see. Let's talk about it. Now, why would I say that? Because first of all, this was in the flood, and it was a bazillion miles tall. I have no clue how tall. But they break with an abrupt transition across the leg bone where it turns into muscle. Now, this is the area which would go off to the front of the foot, and this runs down, and the foot is literally below surface level, the foot itself. So this part here is below the ground, and this part here is sticking up, like there's a little layer above here, like this, and that's this. Now, why do I say that? Well, you see the flat spot here. That's this flat spot here. This side runs right off, which is exactly what would happen. All right, this is the size of the thing. It's only going to be about maybe this big around. All right, and it's that. So, what is this? That appears to me to be a blood vessel. And that's exactly what I have on mine here. If it comes up to feed, you know, on an artery or a vein, whatever it was, I'm not sure. Now, this could be tested. Now, over here, I'm sure this has something to do with something. I don't know what exactly in the bone it is, but it's probably a vein area, and also inside of the center of literally all bones is this extreme mineral factory. It's a factory inside there that makes all kinds of chemistry. And they're called ferritins, and they're metals and minerals, and I think probably there's a lot of enzymes and bacteria and things inside of there that create chemistry sets that facilitate turning these into usable products. And I think there's talk about stem cells in there being either produced or they reside there or whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to get deep into that because that's a whole other area. But I do believe that this is literally the guy's leg. Because a tree doesn't do that. They don't come around like that and then just go off this way. That's the guy's leg, and there's a tendon that runs down your leg. And I believe that's the tendon in the front. I'll show you the tendon I'm talking about. You see this? You saw my note toes. Tish Egerton has these in huge numbers. Let me show you what else. You know, I have no idea where this is, no idea whatsoever. However, they are taking off these tendon slabs. I'm almost certain that's what they're doing, is taking these slabs off of what I'm almost certain is also a foot. It looks pretty obvious to me. I understand the tendons are all running down, and that is where they would run down. The heel would be way down below. Well, not way down. Actually, this is pretty close to the surface. This is, and I would be very, very surprised if there wasn't a good amount of gold not too far down under there. It certainly was standing up in the flood, if I'm correct, and it would have died, and it would have drowned or starved to death, and the blood just settles and settles and settles and settles and settles and settles, and it might have flowed out, the gold. I don't know. It depends on what was under the ground and what backed it up and how high it was and whether the other leg was lower. There's a ton of things to consider, but this is the kind of thing I would look for. And I can see they're taking these tendons right off of there. And the same kind of tendons that are in a lot of other places. Now you can see how much different that is than Tish's foot. However, there is a ball in the back and there is a strap that runs up. She has them in, we can see that in a lot of hers, but then she's got a bunch of springs and curves. Now mine have nothing. They look like, I honestly thought this was a shoe at one time, and I was going to cut it open, and then Tish found all hers, but I could see the bone runs in here, and I could, you know, there it is right there. You know, it's not, and I can actually see the toes underneath here too, and I can see the fabric of life here, and it's not a shoe. It's part of the actual foot. I mean, it looks like a shoe. I know it does. I didn't know what to think, but I could say, I know that where's the blood is coming out and so forth. Anyway, a lot to think about, and you know, we've been doing the best we can at the research, but I would have thought that it would garner more interest. But anyway, there's an abrupt transition, and I think it's way up here, actually. It's not way down here. Well, actually, I think it's right in the middle, and it snaps right in half, and you get a wrinkle zone at the top, and then it falls away. You have the wrinkle zone, and then you have the hex columns. Let's see if I can find something like that for you. All right, here's what happens. When you get an Achilles tendon break, it snaps right there. And then, because it's under tension, you get like a little wrinkly zone across here. I think I have other shots of that one. You see that? I can't remember where that is, but I mean, it's pretty obvious what it is. And that would be where that wrinkly zone was above. Now this has more fleshiness to it, to be honest with you, than most of them. Most of them you'd be all the way down to the tendinous material. But this is more of your fleshy material that's attached to the tendons, and the tendons run underneath down to the Achilles heel and then forward. Now, I don't see any of those circular structures, although I don't know. I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, it sure is, I mean, that's, I can't see how you can miss that being a foot. Okay, see, when I talk about an abrupt transition, I mean abrupt. That's why you see, this is the glue really that holds the tendinous material to the muscle. I don't know exactly where this is in the body and what kind of creature it was, but I can tell you what, that's the tendon. This is the gluey stuff that glues it to the muscle, and the muscle literally wraps into this glue. And this stuff has, I believe it has fibrils that run in through the center of these, because the pregnant lady stone is very similar to these. And if you look at the end of it, you'll see there's all these little, either blood vessels or whatever on the end, but I believe that's what grabs onto it, because other than that, they're flat as a pancake on the end. Nobody cut them that way. You see, that's an abrupt transition. Now this is that they call it pegamite, I believe, pegamatite or something like that. But it holds these. This is literally the tendon fibers. Identical same situation as is in the pregnant lady stones, Baalbek stones, all those gigantic stones. They come up flat as a pancake, flat this way, flat on both sides. I have them here too, in miniature. It's the exact same thing, identical. I mean, mine are as vividly colored as this, but they're identical in structure. No difference whatsoever. And mine show all the sides and the flat top and the end butting right up to muscle glue. I've shown them many times. See, these are abrupt transition too. But what they did, so here I believe, see all these are the tendon fibrils. I believe what they did was start to snap straight down, and then take these chunks out and build whatever they built with them. But you can see there's blood here and there in these, and wherever time you see moss growing on stuff, it's growing on something that is providing it with a source of, nourishment, which is blood. Alright, this is the actual inside the body abrupt transition. And they just, flat as a pancake, they break right off at a certain area which transitions. You see they're showing these different types of materials. Now, I'm not sure whether it's here or here, but it's because it's being pulled, there'll be a wrinkle zone, and it'll go boing, and it'll go there'll be little lines, and then there'll be the stalks will come down. Alright, this is the way this comes down. You have your muscle, and then there's still blood vessels and so forth going through the tendon down, and this is the enthesis, into the bone or wherever it goes to. Now, if this was tipped up this way, and it was the lowest point in the guy's body, and all the blood drained down, it would start collecting here in this muscle. However, it would run down through and collect at the lowest point in the body, or it would flush out. It might flush out and just go into solution into the ground. I can't say that's not going to happen, but I can tell you what, everything that is they're by weight. All right, it's called specific gravity. If you have something that weighs more than the next thing and they're all in solution, they will pile up the heaviest at the bottom, next, basically. And that's how they filter things out. And then, of course, there's sizes, and there's other things to consider. There's polarities and things like that. And then there's different leachants and what do they call it, ligands and things like that, metal complexes that will form, crystals. There's a lot to consider. But I can tell you what, almost 100% certain that the gold will accumulate at a certain point, or it will just run out into little bitty flakes and particulates. A lot of times it actually ends up turning like this, only gold. Now, I don't know what this is. I think it's my silver or something, but it's a toe. And that's where the blood leaked out. And this was at a point of specific gravity that whatever it is, it's a toe. I believe it's a toe. And I can see that's the last bit of bone that's left in this toe. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's bone. And that's blood. Right there. And that turned into this kind of metal. Now, this one here, that's a toe too, and it could turn into some other kind of metal. I have so much stuff that's absolutely unbelievable. Because every single rock was something. I'm telling you, look at this. This is a guy's toe, and there was all kind of different toes. You see that? That's the callus. That's the callus on the guy's toe. All right, there's a toe. And this is, some of them had different types of fabrics on them and different ways of attaching and so forth. I have at least a half a dozen species here that have never been known. And Tish's stuff is different than mine. A lot of it, I think. It's just one of those crazy, crazy, crazy things. And it's time to look at it with, wider eyes. Because, I fully understand everything now. All of these things, these fibers and fibrils, they'll turn into the hex fibers. Here, hold on, I'll show you. All right, first of all, these are the kind of fibers that run up and they turn into hex fibers. These are the kind of balls we find all around the earth, and they invest in different ways, like in a round thing like this, or then they disperse themselves into interstitium. I don't know if they knew about interstitium when this was printed, but now they understand interstitium runs through the whole underlayment of your flesh, so that everything will return to where these balls were implanted. Remember a minute or two ago I showed you these are the tendons, and then they break down into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller bundles, but they end up with these hex fibers. And these are limestone. These are CaCO3, which is exactly what you have in these things that are running up and down, even Devil's Tower. And if you look, you understand there is chemistry that is around these that indicates there's blood and tissues, and all of that stuff can be checked. They're going to be tested. There's no big mystery anymore. And they get down to these little bitty fibrils. And all of this stuff has to be lubricated in the body when you're alive. This is with synovial fluids in there, and it's very, very slick and slippery. And I have all of this stuff. I've seen it all. I've checked it all out. It's just no question. Well, I don't want to be confrontational. I just want somebody to take a look and see the things I'm saying. These hex fibers are not from volcanism. Those are biology. See this? This is on Mars. I'm sorry, this one's on Mars. This one's here on Earth. Remember I told you about the Wrinkle Zone? This was some kind of tendinous material. This portion right here was under stress. And when it snapped, it boing, just a snap like this. And this is what you're going to see here as well. First of all, the tendons we're looking at, a lot of them are like this. There's all different types of tendinous material. Here's the Wrinkle Zone we're talking about. And then there's all kinds of very fine fibers, and then there's these which store fat and blood in between tissues, and they erode in the very strangest way. And there's all kinds of different tissues that are related to structural strappy materials, and that's what this is. And these are those little tendon balls. This is where they see the interstitium now. You see there's some over here too. See that? That's that other kind of tissue that I said was bloody and fatty tissue. I believe it is, and then they carved into it. All right, I probably have or will show you the structures on Earth, but this is the wrinkle zone right here. When they break, they really just break. That's what's an abrupt rupture. The tendon breaks. Then they have to reattach it. It's a serious injury. Now, it's under tension, see? It's always under tension. That's why it returns. Now, when it breaks, doing, and there's a separation. You have to pull it back, and somehow they suture it up and make it structurally sound again, if you're lucky. Now, relating to gold, if they find gold like this here in this tissue, which they will, if it's a leg, they'll probably find some right in here. There'll be little chunks here and there, and they'll, ooh, we found gold. Well, the rest of the blood is going to drain down through there. Like this right here is a fingertip. Now, that's a fingertip. Now, what happened to that fingertip? It was probably in the ground, something like this. Hold on, let me get a light. All right, and I've looked at this very carefully. Vein and artery are here. And that is, see those fibers? That's grip skin. You see those angular looking fibers? Now, you see this crusty looking, reddish looking stuff? That's blood. And that right there is a garnet or some kind of a crystal that is actually blood. It crystallized. Now, why did it come out of there and crystallize and flow out of there? Well, this is the artery side. So this is the side that's the artery. And the vein is over here. And I can actually see the dimple on the vein. You're never going to see it without a microscope. But maybe you can right there. No, I doubt it. Anyway, this is the artery side. And the artery side blows out because there's no restrictions to it. If it's the lowest point, it's because it's in moisture and it's, there's a lot of pressure from the blood flowing through the body downward, it popped out of there. And then it sort of leaked down around here. Now, it's very interesting chemistry in there. But this is indicative of what will happen. Now, would there be gold collecting back up here? Maybe. But there isn't in this, I don't think. There might be a little bit down in here. I have a toe here. This one did have some gold in it, right there. It's all scratched out of there it's been years and years been laying around here. But I believe there's still probably a little gold in there. You can dig it out of there if you wanted to. But I mean, I don't care about it. It's just, that's where the blood leaked out. Now, again, you see this? That's blood. That's blood. And it forms crystals because there's a ton of metals and minerals in your blood. It's just the way your blood works. You see all these crystals and flashy little things? That's blood. And that was a toe. And this side here is the vein side, and that's the artery side. You see the red? It's just what it is. Now, here goes. Don't forget, we're back to the Ancient Astronaut Archive, original synopsis, The Lost Book of Enki, and here we go.
Seemed successful until Nibiru reached its apogee near the sun and the breach returned.
They had injected these gold particles into their atmosphere to keep the sun from penetrating and killing them, because they get real close to the sun. Now, it didn't work, got pushed aside, so now they're in trouble.
Anu then ordered the return of Abgal to Earth, along with Nungal and more heroes. However, With the additional heroes and equipment, gold acquisition was underwhelming, and Ea decided to resume aerial reconnaissance. He finally discovered the Abzu, southern Africa, where gold veins were abundant.
There you go. Gold veins were abundant. That's where you see water flowing through. These are arteries. Now, the veins may be where they collect the gold because they have little plugs in them that stop things from going through there. I don't know. But I do want to bring up another point about Michael Tellinger, who is a nice guy. He's down there looking at these stone circles. Now, I think he might want to take a little different approach to it, that they could be from literally biology, and they just moved them around a little bit, or they just left them the way they are. I've been looking at them, and I think I'm pretty sure it's biology. But anyway, he's a nice guy. He's doing a good job. He's looking at the giants. He's doing all kinds of things down there. So you should go, take a look at his stuff. That's, he's doing valid work. Now, here goes. Because my point being here is that this is where the gold is. This is where the veins of gold are. This is the Abzu. This is South Africa. This is where the stone circles are. This is where biology nobody can account for it. Nobody can account for that stuff. Now, we could if we knew what the stones were made out of, and you have to do some chemistry. Basically, that's what it boils down to. We have to get into chemistry and the biological nature of the rocks. They're all biological. So, but they crystallize and they change in a plethora of different ways. This was a heart at one time. I'm almost 100% sure of that. Now, obviously, there's another one that is changed a little bit, but this also, I believe, is a heart. And then you get them that I don't know if that's a heart or not, but it probably is. And then you get them where they literally look exactly identical to a heart because they were, well, here, wait to show you, I'll show you this. This is a mind blower, isn't it? You see all these different colors? Different colors means different types of tissues. This is like ventricle walls. These are arterial passageways, let's say. Then you have different types of minerals and metals that are in the blood. This is primarily blood. All these different colors are not just floating around there for no reason. Those are transition metals that are in the bloodstream that flow through your blood. They carry different molecules around. They're called ligands. Ligands are attachments to metal complexes. These are the metal complexes, every color. And this may carry oxygen, that might carry phosphorus and sugars and whatever. And that's what they do. And they float through your body. And your heart pumps them. And your lungs makes them spit out the carbon dioxide and bring in some oxygen. They carry all the stuff through and they deposit it in the urine and they do all that stuff. That's how blood works. And every color indicates a different type of chemistry. All right? And this is opal. This is not taking a picture of something that was brown. This is exactly what it looks like right now. This is opal. Opal means that it was transitioned in some, and I can't really account for it 100%, but there are certain areas that produce these in abundance, and that's in Australia. And this is what they call yoperlite, something like that. I forget what exactly. I think it's yoperlite, and it's they're biological terrestrial creatures that somehow got into some chemistry that allowed the transition metals to stabilize what you would call nucleophilically, which means the tissues was invaded. They all started out brown looking, basically, and they got invaded by certain chemicals that had this color, and they wanted to be stable with that. And everybody could stabilize and find their own tissue types. this is unusual. And there has to be some really elegant chemistry that goes along with it. Some pH and aqueous solutions and salts and then once everybody gets stable, it locks in, and then you have your opal. And all opals are from biology. That's an eyeball. You see that? That's the strap of the eye. If you look it up in an anatomy chart, you'll see there's a strap that runs up to the side of the eye. It pulls the eye around. And it's an eyeball. It's obviously an opal. See the strap? Now, anything can turn into anything. It depends on the conditions that it was in when it was stabilizing. Basically, that's the best I can say. Okay, I keep saying, oh, it's nothing but chemistry and nothing, no big deal. Well, why are these different colors just from chemistry? The reason is because every different type of atom has a different length and a different angle of its molecular structure. And it depends on the length. It's just like a guitar string, and how tight it is. Now, I did this, and I'm going to show you just so you understand. I understand this very well. These are the different bond angles to this particular molecule. And what it boils down to is there's different distances of regions away from the central core of the atom. And if it bounces off of this region, it's going to be a certain color. From this one, another color. Think of it that way. But that's the type of situation that we're talking about. It's almost like guitar strings. Only this is like a harp on steroids. Been watching Tyson's stuff. He's got giant membranes that are like 6 feet thick. A membrane, as you can see right through it in ours. You need a microscope to even see it. Now, these could well have been biological formations, and I know they're altered, obviously. That's probably was penned off for some animals or who knows what. But I believe a lot of this was initially biological little fibers and things. Maybe interstitial. Let's look at interstitial. All right, not only is interstitial like this, and these balls are everywhere, but these are the tiniest balls that are in your body that are anchor balls. I call them tendon anthesis. Now, there's other ones that are gigantic compared to these. Let's take a look at that. And I believe those are the source of a lot of the things that are in South Africa, after seeing that was the Absu, and that's where they went for the gold, and that's because there was gigantic veins of gold there, because there was a gigantic giant there, and that would leave gigantic chemistry. Very similar in biology, almost identical to what Tyson has. Now, somebody sent me this, and I can't remember who it was, and I'm sorry, but I just can't remember. It's from Huntston Beach in Norfolk, United Kingdom. These are all interstitial balls. This is literally flesh, and that is the skin above the flesh. I'm sorry, that's what it is. Now, it's somebody's arm or something. It's just unbelievable what we have on Earth that has been just ignored. And because I know it's ignored, because I've been doing this for 8.5 years of pretty intense bringing this out in the public, and it's been just absolutely crushed. Now, let me show you what Tyson has, because it's everywhere. It's 100% of the Earth. It's not just here. And it is giants and dragons, and my giants are DNA certified, huge, over 200 feet tall, one of them. It's got a 3-foot long fingertip, 3 feet long, 30 inches wide. So don't forget, now you see that, you can think of things like Chaco Canyon. Because believe me, a Chaco Canyon is an overhang, and underneath are tendon walls that were part of the biology, as far as I can see. Okay, now, obviously Michael Tellinger is the guy in South Africa. I've watched him for years, fabulous guy, nice guy. He has different opinions on things than me, so I don't want to mix any of my research with his. And all this is about is to maybe mention, maybe it'll be a different idea to look at this in a different way. That's all. Because he has other ideas that I don't necessarily endorse, and and I have my own ideas. So, but anyway, that's South Africa. I believe is just a huge, gigantic creature, and that's why they were finding all this gold there. And I think a lot of this stuff. I mean, I'm not 100% certain this is all biological, no question whatsoever. And I am also certain if there's a ton of gold there, that means there's a ton of blood to drain down, and as it does, it filtrates, like it collects in a certain specific depth and a certain specific area that was the blood. And that's all there is to it. And if you look at all like these kind of things here, they have some similarities that, maybe that's the same structure. I don't know. I don't think so. But anyway, there's a lot to reconsider here. Wow, look at that. Well, I guess that's an antelope. At first I thought it was something different. But anyway, there's a lot to reconsider in every realm. In every realm now. Because the Earth is biological, the planets are all biological, the asteroid belt, I'm almost certain, is nothing but creature-esque. Space smells like steak. Comets are 67P, 100% certain what that is. Very, very difficult to know these things and not to have anybody even take a look at them. And and these are things that are not hard to analyze and understand. They're things that are refused to be examined. That's the rub with me. If they could examine it and say, oh, here's the reason, and then I could say, well, what about this and what about that? And they would answer me back. Then I could live with that, no problem whatsoever. No problem whatsoever. But this is it's disheartening at the least.